We have made it into the postseason here in year number 6 of the San Francisco Giants franchise here on MLB The Show 24. Today we're going to go through the NLDS against either the Dodgers or the Cubs. The plan is for each postseason series, we will go through it in an episode. So theoretically, this might be the only postseason episode if we do end up losing in the first round. As we take a look at the standings across the league, we do end up getting the number 1 seed, winning 97 games. So we got the top seed convincingly, despite the fact that it really did not look that way going into last episode's trade deadline. There was a point of time in the summer where we were the second or third wild card team. We were 4th in the division at some point in June. But luckily, the squad was able to play really well over the last couple of months of the year. And it seems like we've peaked at the right time after inconsistencies through June and July. So last episode was the trade deadline, and we made some big moves. None more shocking than swapping Kyle Harrison and Spencer Strider. A fascinating deal, given that both guys are expiring, and obviously the Braves are one of our big rivals. We also brought back JoJo Romero, along with adding Oswald Peraza and Lucas Gilbreth. We'll be without Gilbreth for the postseason, which sucks given how good of a season he's had as a lefty in the bullpen. He's the only injury, though. Munetaka Murakami's banged up, but I intentionally kept him off the injured list in case he got better after the NLDS started. Nonetheless, I think he should be good to go once that series is set to kick off. But as I said, I think our team is in a good spot. I think the addition of Oswald Peraza really rounds out the lineup, giving us some consistency that we've been missing in the infield. And then pitching-wise, I think Spencer Strider's been a little bit better than Kyle Harrison, and even though he's 3 years older, I think Strider's the better long-term piece, which is why I made the deal. Of course, Chase Dollander has moved into a full-time starting role. He's been really good. JoJo Romero's been surprisingly bad, the biggest reason why we were able to bring him back. Hopefully that does not continue. So real quick, we'll go through our studs and duds of the year. The stud of the year ends up being Chase Dollander. No major surprise here. What a turnaround for Dollander, who was not good at all in his first 4 seasons with the Colorado Rockies. So much so that he was available in the Rule 5 draft. And I don't usually use our Rule 5 picks, but I figured, why not? I think there's still some upside. He's 27 years old. If it doesn't work out, we can return him to Colorado. Little did I know this dude would be a monster for us. Our most consistent starter other than Sandy Alcantara. So his rating and potential will go up by 3. Brendan Donovan ends up in 2nd place. He's been a really positive trade deadline acquisition from a couple of years ago. He's gotten consistently better since the trade with the Cardinals. Unlike last year, he was able to stay healthy and still put up a relatively similar slash line. The key for him is going to be the postseason. Was not good in Season's 4 playoffs. Was not good in last year's playoffs. Hopefully 3rd time's the charm. He'll go up by 2. Ian Hamilton did not get any first place votes, unfortunately, but he still deserves a boost. He's been really solid over the years with the Yankees, but he had his best season with us this year and certainly has earned a pay raise in the offseason, so his rating and potential will go up by 1. As for the duds of the year, it was a little bit complicated with JoJo Romero given that, well, he wasn't on our team for 4 months, but I still felt like putting him on the list because he was bad all year, and he was especially bad after the trade, and he ended up being the loser. Certainly an interesting season for JoJo, coming off an incredible postseason run a year ago. I tried to re-sign him. He ended up going to Minnesota, where he was horrible for the first 4 months of the year, and the Twins could not wait to get out of that contract. I decided to take the opportunity, knowing that he's obviously pitched well with us in the past, but yeah, not so much. His numbers were even worse the last 2 months of the year than they were with the Twins, and he's going to be on the books for 3 more expensive seasons. Nonetheless, I think we can bring back JoJo to where he was, maybe not the last 2 years, but still a high-end, consistent lefty. Hopefully that starts in this postseason, but going down by 3 certainly does not help his case. Fernando Molina ends up getting 2nd. He's really benefited from the stud and dud of the year system over the years, but this year he was not particularly good. First full-time season as a starter did not go very well. He wasn't awful, but I was expecting an all-star level year from him, and that just did not happen. I think part of the reason is because in the offseason I was supposed to up his stamina, and after the long playoff run, he needed rest. In other words, I forgot. I will do it next offseason, though, but his rating and potential will go down by 2. he is now an 81. Leody Taveras ended up getting third place, and while we did not sign him a couple years ago for his bat, the offense has not been great. He's been one of the weak links for us offensively. Now, we signed him for what he provides defensively, along with his veteran presence. He's a guy who's played in a lot of big games, and that showed last year. He stepped up in the postseason. He was one of our best hitters after missing the NLDS due to an injury. But the fact of the matter is, he did not hit the ball well this year. Not at all. So he will go down by 1. Still an 89. Still a really good player, but certainly limited in terms of what he provides at the plate. As for the minors, we'll try to go through these really quick, but our stud of the year ends up being one of our pitchers in the system, that being Jason McGowan, only 19 years old. We traded a few really good pitching prospects at the deadline, guys like J.J. Green and Omar Jimenez, guys who I really feel like are talented. So to have someone like McGowan take a leap up is a big deal for us. His rating and potential will go up by 3. In second place, we have outfielder Simone Vincent, a guy who I think is going to have a really good opportunity to make the big league team next year. Most of our international free agents have floundered, with the exception of Munetaka Murakami. Seems like they've all gotten injured. Vicente Alegre, we lost in the Rule 5 draft last year after he didn't really develop. But Vincent looks like the real deal in the outfield, and with Leody Taveras as a free agent, he could be a very easy replacement for us. Smooth lefty stroke, can defend, can run, really well-rounded player. Edwin Arroyo ends up in third place, another guy who I think is going to have a very good shot of making the big league team next year. He had a really strong early portion of the year in AAA. I decided to keep him in the minors where he cooled off. But with J.P. Crawford and Ian Happ free agents, and now Oswald Peraza, I think he's certainly a guy to watch out for the future. As for the dud of the year, Reggie Crawford ended up being the loser. He's a two-way player for us and was really bad as both a hitter and a pitcher. One could say he's the Isaiah Kiner-Falefa of Shohei Ohtani's. So he'll go down by 3 in terms of his pitching and his hitting ratings, which is awfully unfortunate for the 28-year-old. The hitting ratings are quite good, though. Combine that with his defense, I feel like he'd be better off as a regular position player, but I don't think I can edit a pitcher into a position player, which is kind of unfortunate. As for second place, we've got Alan Cobb. His ratings are still certainly a ways away, but for one of the higher upside prospects in our system who we added through the draft last year with 97 potential, I was a little bit disappointed to see that he was a net negative as a defensive player and his offense as well. Hit for good power, though, which is definitely the calling card of his game. Still has 95 potential, still a lot of reasons to be excited, but he might be about 8 years away. Luis Rodriguez ends up getting third place. He will go down by 1. Ratings are not great. The expectations were not very high, but there weren't that many other players to pick from, which is why he is the third and final dud of the year candidate. So with that, let's now prepare for our NLDS matchup against either the Dodgers or the Cubs. This is now our 4th consecutive season in the postseason, and over the last 3 years, the only teams we've played in the NLDS are either the Cubs or the Dodgers. So it's pretty fitting. All time in the NLDS, we are 9-0. We have never lost an NLDS game in this franchise series, which is pretty hard to believe. So who will it be? The Dodgers, who we swept last year, or the Cubs, who we swept the 2 years prior to that? As Game 1 goes to Chicago, they end up winning 4-2. All 3 games in Los Angeles, for what it's worth, but the Cubs take one on the road. 3 hits for Andrew Vaughn and a good start for Christian Javier. Shohei Ohtani ended up pitching fairly solid, but the bullpen kind of blew it. Game 2 goes to the Dodgers. They tied this series at 1, despite Christopher Morel going 5 for 5. Holy moly. Brady Singer pitched pretty well, but Emilio Pagan completely blew it, not allowing a single out, let up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned. Not a great start from Yoshinobu Yamamoto, but the bullpen slammed the door. Game 3, do or die. We've got the Cubs in the NLDS. They beat the Dodgers 5-3 with a 2-run 9th inning. Big games from Chisholm. Morel with 2 more hits. Homers for Horner and Vaughn. Roansy Contreras, 7 innings of 2-run ball, while most of the stars for the Dodgers came up short. Kyle Tucker, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and Mookie Betts combined to go 1 for 15. And in typical Dodger fashion, they find a way to completely screw it up when it matters the most. The Dodgers have built a super team just to never make it out of the NLDS with their core. So with that, we've got the Cubs. As we look at the other games, Kansas City will play Boston, Minnesota versus Texas, and then the Padres beat Atlanta. They will match up with the Pirates in the NLDS, and that means we will not get a fourth straight year of Braves and Giants in the NLCS. But we've got to get there first, and that starts with the Cubs, a team who we've owned in the playoffs over the last 3 years, 6-0 against these guys. But their team looks a little different. They've added some talent. Brandon Marsh has become one of the best players in the league. Jazz Chisholm's still quite good. Andrew Vaughn has really turned into a stud. Christopher Morel, we saw how good he played in the series against the Dodgers. They will be without one of their key infielders, though, in Ha-Seong Kim. As for the pitching, they've got a pretty solid group overall. Christian Javier, Brady Sr., Roansy Contreras leading the way. So with that, we have to decide who will be on our postseason roster. The guys who we're going to take off will be Hayden Birdsong, who only threw 3 innings for us. Elijah Warren will go back down to the minors, as will Edwin Arroyo, who did not play at all in the big leagues this year. And then Brendan Davis, although I did not show him for some reason. So I'm excited to show you guys the format of how we're going to go through the playoffs accelerated, since we're going through a full series in one episode. We are going to be heavily relying on the critical situations, and I'm going to be hopping into every single game, essentially. I moved the situation important slider to the non-important side, and I set the earliest inning we can jump into being the first. Here in Game 1, though, we're going to travel all the way to the 6th. 1-0 Cubs, both starters doing really well. Ben Brown for them, Sandy Alcantara for us. We do have a runner on second, though, for Kyler Rodriguez, who hits it up the middle for a base hit. Looking to score the run and tie the game, we do. And this one is knotted up at 1. Big swing there for Kyler, last year's World Series MVP. And we'll see if we can potentially take the lead. Tommy Rogers was our best player through much of the postseason last year. Him and Jung-Hoo Lee really leading the way as Rogers slaps this one into the right center gap. Perfectly placed into Triple's alley. You know the speedster's thinking at least 3. Rodriguez scores with no problems, and the San Francisco Giants take the lead, as it is now a 2-1 ball game. Big swing for Tommy, picking up right where he left off from last year's postseason. Rogers cooled off in the second half of the year after playing really well early, so I'm hoping that's not a trend. Stone Garrett struggled last year in the playoffs. I'm certainly hoping that's not a trend either. He'll take a 4-pitch walk, and we've got runners on the corners and 2 outs. A huge at-bat for Munetaka Murakami, another guy who really struggled last year in the playoffs. Was really not good for the first half of this year before picking it up as he lines this one into center field, and that one goes for a hit. Even Murakami is delivering after his rough month of October a season ago. Hopefully this means for both him and Garrett that each of their fortunes will end up being changed. So Ben Brown, who had 5 scoreless innings, will be taken out of the game here with a disastrous 6th. He's let up 3 runs so far. We've added 2 more on the bases, and this could get ugly for the Cubs if they don't get a stop here. So they're going to have to probably use one of their high-leverage arms out of the pen. They're actually going to go with Max Fried. An interesting strategy here. Fried started for much of the season for the Cubs. Looks like they've transitioned him into a bullpen role as he's gotten older. They want the lefty-on-lefty matchup with Blake Sabol, but we can't forget he has a 99 clutch rating as he takes the high heat. Would have been ball 4, should have let that one go by, but Sabol wanted to be aggressive. Does a little too much there. Successful inning, we score 3, but I feel like we could have gotten more. Let's travel into the 8th. 2-run homer by Brendan Donovan makes it 5-1, but Vidal Brujan adds a 2-run shot for the Cubs. Nico Horner makes his way to second base, and all of a sudden the door is open for Chicago. We would go to the bullpen, bringing in JoJo Romero. He'll face off against former first-round draft pick Isley Chu. Count is even 1-1. Sharp grounder to short with 1 away. Nice throw over to first by Oswald Peraza, acquired from the Milwaukee Brewers after a career season, leading the MLB in triples with 13, 12 of which came in the first 2.5 months of the year as Marsh goes down on the slider. I was excited about the lefty-on-lefty matchup with JoJo and Marsh. JoJo wins the battle. Maybe he's just a postseason merchant, as that'll bring us into the top of the 9th. Runner aboard here, tying run is up, and Camilo Doval looks to shut the door with nobody out. Big swing could change this game. It will not come from Jazz Chisholm. This could be 2. Murakami, Donovan, over to Rodriguez. It's a 5-4-3 double play. That is a killer for the Cubs. And now they're really going to need a lot. It is Christopher Morel, who had 7 hits over the last 2 games against the Dodgers, but he goes down on the slider, finishing his afternoon 0 for 4. The Giants are now 10-0 in the NLDS in this series all time. That's pretty good. I've got to say, the only National League team we've lost a playoff game to ever since episode 1 is the Atlanta Braves, and, well, we've lost a lot against them. Nonetheless, a good win here. We still have 2 more to take care of. The thing that I noticed is a lot of the guys who struggled last year in the postseason played well. Garrett made some plays. Murakami made some plays. Brendan Donovan won the player of the game with his big 2-run homer in the 7th. The Cubs relied on a few guys. Horner played well. Vaughn, Shaw, Brujan all produced. Everybody else wet the bed. I don't think a single other player got a hit. We only ended up with 7, not getting a lot of base runners, but when we did, we capitalized with 3 in the 6th, 2 more in the 7th, and a really good start by Sandy Alcantara. Here in Game 2, look at this. The bases are loaded in the first inning against their ace, Christian Javier. Blake Sabol, 99 clutch. That one's going to drop. We get 1. Looking to make it 2. Garrett slides safely. A fast start to Game 2. The Giants lead it 2-0 here in the first. Set the tone early. Keep the pedal to the metal, and don't let the Cubs think they've got a chance. The former Cub, Ian Happ, goes down looking. Declined quite a bit this year. Still a good offensive player, though, but not what he once was. Peraza fouls it back. Will Smith will make the play. Good inning, though. We leave 2 guys on, but we get to a very promising start as we move into the 3rd. And now the Cubs have the bases loaded against Spencer Strider, making his first postseason start as a Giant. This setting is certainly not new to him. He's pitched in a lot of playoff games with the Braves. He's pitched in a lot of postseason games against us. As Marsh singles into right. 1 run scores, and they're going to keep it at 1. Probably a smart decision. Even though the throw was offline, he probably still would have been tagged out because the throw was so far ahead. Nonetheless, a base hit for Marsh. That'll bring up Andrew Vaughn. 3-2. Can't walk him, but that's going to be slapped into left. 1 run scores, we're tied. 2nd run for the lead. He is safe. That's Chu. A 2-run single for Andrew Vaughn. The Cubbies lead it 3-2. They're looking to do some more damage now. Jazz Chisholm ahead 1-0. Gets a hanging pitch he likes and crushes it into right. Off the top of the wall. Bounces perfectly into Garrett's glove. And he gets Jazz Chisholm out at second. They're going to send the run home, and he's out! A double play to end the inning. That might be the first time ever that we've seen a play maybe a foot away from being a homer, bounce off the wall, and end up being a double play. Now, unfortunately, the Cubs offense would dominate the rest of the way. They ended up winning 10-4. We did not get another chance to hop in because the game was never close. The Cubs got 4 more runs in the 4th. A disastrous first postseason start for Spencer Strider. 3 innings, 8 earned runs allowed. That is not good. Christian Javier pitched well. Blake Sabol with a great game. He drove in 4, but unfortunately it was not enough because Spencer Strider sucked balls. That'll bring us into Game 3 in Chicago, and we're off to a really good start. 2-0 here in the 4th. Bases loaded. 2 away for Brendan Donovan, who's playing really well against the Cubs so far. Up the middle, base hit. That should score 2. The other runner looks to make it to 3rd. Everybody is safe. Peraza, the 2nd run to score, and the Giants lead it 4-0 with a big single by Brandon Marsh. Tommy Rogers now belts it into right. It's 5-0. We're finally taking advantage of the bases loaded. You love to see it. So now there's 2 on, 2 away. The Cubs are going to go to the bullpen, yanking Brady Sr. out for Max Fried, who pitched a little bit in Game 1. It did not go well. Maybe Game 3 will go a little bit better. 0-2 for Jung-Hoo Lee, lefty-on-lefty matchup as this one is fouled into left. And it will be caught! Scaling up the wall is Isley Chu, who makes a really nice play there. Giants lead 5-0, though. The Cubs hitless up to this point. Fernando Molina, who did not have a great regular season, has been fantastic. Peraza RBI single at 6-0. Now it's time to close the door, looking for a shutout with Molina. And I'm going to be the fun police. And instead of player locking the last couple of innings, I'm going to take him out of the game With Molina's lower stamina rating, I don't think it makes sense to have him try to throw a complete game, especially since we're up 6-0. If it was 1-0, that's a little bit different. 7 scoreless, though, for Fernando Molina. He was fantastic. Edwin Diaz will come in to replace him, and thankfully the bullpen did not completely blow it. We end up winning 6-0 and now lead the series 2-1. A great performance here from Fernando Molina, who again did not play all that well in the regular season, but in his biggest game of the year, the one that really matters, he delivers. 7 innings, 11 strikeouts, only let up 2 hits and 1 walk, and then most importantly, no runs. Donovan homers again. Murakami goes deep as well, while Diaz and Manzanillo shut the door. Rough day in the office for the Cubs, who are going to look to battle back with their backs against the wall against Chase Dollander in his first career postseason game. Looks like it's going pretty well so far. We're up 1-0 in the third. Dollander's certainly not used to this, being that he spent his entire career with the Rockies. Horner up the middle. Donovan dives for it. In hindsight, I guess he shouldn't have. So Horner's at first, the other runner at third. And now with 2-1 and 2 away, Chicago finds themselves in a huge spot. It'll be Isley Chu. First pitch. Pops it into left center. Leody Taveras, who has not started in a postseason game yet, will make the play. Dollander gets out of the jam, and so far the lights do not look too bright for our stud of the year. He pitched in a lot of big games in his collegiate career back at the University of Tennessee. RBI double for Jun Hooley. It's 2-0 into the fifth. Dollander's let up just 3 hits, no walks, but the Cubs have 2 runners on base, 2 away, top of the order. Nico Horner just going to ground it over to short. Peraza makes the play, and that's 5 scoreless for Chase Dollander. We'll see if we can add to the lead, as we would have a lot of offense both ways. Hackman single, Donovan RBI double, but then Matt Shaw would save the day, sacrifice in the 7th. The Cubs add 2 in the 8th, and then Shaw homers in the 9th to bring the lead within 2. The Cubs have also added a base runner, and we're going to have Jojo Romero replace Camilo Doval. Horner flies out to center, caught by Taveras for the first out of the inning. Camilo Doval did not pitch well, a rarity given how well he has done this season. And it's interesting that it is Romero in this spot given how badly he's played in the regular season, but I trust him, I believe in him, as Isley Chu strikes out, and the Cubs are down to their final out of this series. It'll come down to Brandon Marsh, arguably their best hitter, but it is a lefty-on-lefty matchup, as Marsh looks at the first pitch for strike 1. He is the tying run for Chicago. He's got to get on base, and we'll see if he can make something happen. As he chases the low circle change, he's behind 0-2. Chicago, their season, down to its final strike. 0-2 on its way from Romero. Does not chase the outside slider. Wanted to embarrass him to end the season there. Count now sits at 1-2. Romero likely looking for the outside part again, as Marsh does not waver on the cutter. Count is now 2-2 for Brandon Marsh as he's evened it up. High and inside fastball. He'll take it for ball 3. That must have been a really hard one to lay off. Just barely edges away from the strike zone. Give Marsh credit, though. He started the count down 0-2. Full count now on the ground to short. This should do it. Oswald Peraza over to first, and the Giants are moving on to the NLCS. They defeat the Chicago Cubs in 4 games by the final score of 6-4. We'll get either San Diego or Pittsburgh in the NLCS for a spot in the World Series. So a really strong NLDS for us. Got a little dicey there in Game 2, but when we needed stuff to go our way, it did happen. Fernando Molina, 7 scoreless in Game 3. Chase Dollander was awesome in his first career postseason start, as was the offense. 14 hits. Everybody had at least 1. I am a little worried about Camilo Doval. He only faced off against 1 batter, so that makes me think he got injured, which would not be good. Matt Shaw did what he could, his 4th home run of the postseason, but it was not enough, as we've got the Pirates or the Padres upcoming. There's nothing here about Camilo Doval, so that must mean he's all good. Thank God. If he was out, that would not be good news. So San Diego and Pittsburgh is tied at 2. Shane McClanahan and Paul Skeens, the 2 aces, will face off against each other in Game 5. And ultimately, we will face off against the San Diego Padres. They win 3-0. McClanahan pitches a shutout. The only runs for the Padres come off a 3-run homer in the 4th by Fernando Tatis Jr. Looks like Paul Skeens overall through the course of the game was pretty solid outside of the homer, but the Pirates offense really struggled. Skeens 5 innings of 3-run ball, Thomas White with 4 scoreless, but ultimately it does not matter. And we've got San Diego, who finished 11 games behind us in the division, but I don't really think that tells the full story. It was a tight division race all year. The Padres, for much of the season, looked like our biggest competition, but while we rose over the last couple of months, they fell. But now they've beaten Atlanta and Pittsburgh in the playoffs. They've won numerous elimination games so far, and we've got them upcoming in the next episode. I know today's episode was a little bit on the shorter side, but I was planning on having both the NLDS and NLCS together, but that video would be nearly 2 hours long. So in other words, this series upcoming against the Padres is going to be really exciting. So I hope you guys are ready for that in the next episode. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.